Epstein, Jeffrey Epstein. It actually happened. It finally happened. Jeffrey Epstein, billionaire New York financier, long accused of molesting dozens of girls, was arrested on Saturday and charged with sex trafficking by federal prosecutors in an extraordinary turn of events in a long and sordid criminal case. He's been charged with sex trafficking, not just with like the head of not 23andMe, what is it, Ancestry.com, and the head of the Sundance Film Festival and everybody in Hollywood and everything. Not just one crime. That's usually what they get them on. NXIVM, they did nab the NXIVM sex cult on a larger scale, and they did take down Backpage. Here are those stories. These are real. The CEO of Backpage arrested for sex trafficking. These are high-level people, CEOs. It's not the lower-level pimps being picked off anymore. One day people just tried to log into Backpage and they got this message right here, April 6, 2018. Backpage.com and all affiliated websites have been seized by the Joint Regional Intelligence Center, and it has all these intelligence agencies and the FBI and all of that. The NXIVM sex trafficking cult, also busted, also full of elitists and movie stars, and they had human slavery. They were branding humans, human slavery and sex trafficking. And these were high society figures, these rich families, high society figures. And of course, Allison Mack from Hollywood, little Smallville actress, little cutesy little girl. She wouldn't do anything wrong, right? People are like, they can't wrap their minds around the depravity of these people. This was a woman, little Smallville actress, branding and keeping human slaves and trading them. Human trafficking in the modern era. And here's that Ancestry.com co-founder sentenced to prison in child sex abuse case. Hey, these are the people you guys are sending all your family records to. You know that, right? 23andMe, where everybody's sending their DNA. You're sending your DNA to Google? Is the sister of the gal who runs YouTube, who's banning and censoring all of us. Yeah. So these people, these are the ones you're sending all your family records and even your DNA to. Whether you believe the QAnon theme about breaking up these pedophile rings or not, you have to admit, we haven't seen in a long time the high up, the people of social standing being busted for this type of thing that we have seen in the last, few years. Sundance co-founder, everybody, oh, the Sundance Film Festival, it's so trendy, and these are really the intellectuals. They're not like Hollywood with all the dumb, broad entertainment for the masses. This is Sundance Film Festival. Well, one of the co-founders of the Sundance Film Festival has been sentenced to 6 years to life in prison after pleading guilty to sexually abusing a child. And don't forget, leftist tech reporter Peter Bright arrested for pedophilia. This wasn't just some citizen journalist. This guy was on the inside. These big tech companies let him on the inside. This was their go-to guy. And he also was well known for bad-mouthing everyone who talked about Pizzagate, for making light of them, for being crazy conspiracy theorists and all this. And his tag is at Dr. Pizza. And that's part of the reason why he was defending, oh, no, pizza isn't really a sign for, child sex trafficking or anything like that. Well, really? Because he was arrested with irrefutable evidence. He was soliciting that a mother sell him her 7- and 9-year-old boy and girl. And he went on to tell her explicit stuff like he had been tested for AIDS and for STDs, so she'd be able to use her children with other clients. She didn't have to worry about that. And that he had been in an ongoing relationship, if you will, with an 11-year-old girl for a long time and all this stuff. So irrefutable pedo. He was always on a rampage against Trump and against Pizzagate conspiracy theorists, if you will. And I wonder why, because they took him down. And make no mistake, that wasn't just an accident or he got turned in. This was an FBI sting. He just happened to get caught in an FBI sting. The person that he was talking to wasn't a mother of these children at all. The whole time she was an agent, and it was a sting. So for those people who don't understand how complex and fluid things are, there are white hats in the intelligence agencies. I don't care if you call them white hats or not. There are good people still trying to defend our freedoms, defend our nation, defend us. But they are intertwined with a crime syndicate that has infiltrated every agency, everything in our nation, and all other nations for that matter. My point is, since Trump took office, MSM reporter arrested for child porn. A current affair reported arrested for child pornography. Prominent reporter Peter Bright, that's hardcore games journalist, arrested for pedophilia. That's Peter Bright. Good news, it is happening. For those of you who thought, oh, it's all talk and it'll never happen. New York billionaire Jeffrey Epstein has been arrested. And he's not just charged with molesting a couple of kids. He is charged with federal charges of sex trafficking. It's happening. It's really happening. And now, of course, everybody wants to link him to Trump, but as far as the charges and stuff, there is no link to Trump. Do rich people run in the same circles and attend the same parties and gatherings? Yes. But as far as people who were on the logs, there's actual evidence, airplane logs, that has people's initials, people's names, the dates that they flew to his sex trafficking cult island. And there are pictures of these major royal families, major politicians, presidents of nations, presidents of our nation, who are shown in the pictures with their arms around these little girls. And then their names are logged into the flight logs. And those include former President Bill Clinton and Prince Andrew and the Duke of York. I mean, this is real. If they try this case where the mainstream, where the public, where the masses can see what has been going on, I mean, the flight logs right there. They have Kevin Spacey, President Clinton. We have records of who took the flights to Epstein Island repeatedly. Repeat visitors. There's tons of evidence from their own accounts. You guys know I've covered Ray Chandler before in several videos. And there's the pictures of her on the Lolita Express with President Clinton, with all the celebrities, tons, and royal families. Right there, the royals, right there. There's another famous madam. I mean, she's not famous for being a madam, but the people who did the research found out she absolutely is a madam. A pimp for high society. I mean, this makes Heidi Fleiss look like small potatoes. She's like a ghetto pimp, ghetto celebrity pimp. Nothing compared to these people who are dealing with high society, royal families, and the presidents of nations. This is big, big, big. Look at and see how the mainstream, see how Google, they'll ban us, but for Heidi Fleiss, they'll label her a TV personality. And also a columnist and television personality, regularly featured in the 1990s in American media. At least they do still mention that she was referred to as the Hollywood Madam because she was running sex trafficking for Hollywood. So like I've said back when I did cover QAnon, back when it first started, I have a series on a playlist on my channel still. It's called Who is QAnon or QAnon What is Going On. That's the ones that I did. And in every single video I said the same thing. It doesn't matter to me at all if QAnon is some sort of insider that is leaking information to start an awakening amongst the masses so that they can mentally prepare for what's about to be exposed, or if it's just a group of inside researchers like me who have masterminded a great way to get people involved in citizen journalism, to get people involved in researching these topics. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who it is, as long as it's still serving good. Now, if it takes a turn and they start telling all the Q followers and people covering the posts to go and get a neural implant and start worshiping some genetically engineered savior of mankind, then I'll cover it and we'll get worried about it. But for now, it has exposed so much corruption. These people have worked their butts off day and night digging to reveal this stuff to everybody. So now Epstein has been arrested and we can handle it. And you can see the corruption because they have their dirty politicians, their dirty judges, their dirty police officers and prosecutors in all of these different locations. You saw it with Clinton during the sex scandals. You remember when he molested Monica Lewinsky in the Oval Office? Unbelievable. And his sperm was on her dress, DNA evidence that it actually did happen. And everybody knows all the stuff that happened with the Clintons, that the prosecutors there in Arkansas that came against them for drug trafficking and stuff all ended up, you know, mafia style with their hands cut off and heads cut off and ended up in trash dumps. Just, you know, mafia stuff. And anyway, the same way with this case in Manhattan. It said that Jeffrey Epstein earlier pled guilty to lesser state charges of soliciting prostitution. He served 13 months in county lockup and registered as a sex offender. His jail arrangement allowed him to get out of the Palm Beach County stockade 6 days a week to work out of his office. So that's what I was talking about earlier. That's usually the way they do it in these cases. They'll give them like something silly like prostitution or, you know, one charge of this or that. And that's exactly what they did. So surely you can see the difference. Same guy, same exact activity, arrested during the Obama administration when he had his guys in the Justice Department and the FBI. And see, this was 2016, before the elections of 2016, and he got a little slap on the wrist in the county jail. And 6 of the 7 days a week, he was allowed to leave the jail and go to his office and work. That's what happened under Obama's Justice Department. And this is what happened in 2019, same person, same case, under Trump's administration and his Justice Department. And after all of his firings in the FBI and all of this stuff, wealthy financier Jeffrey Epstein arrested for sex trafficking. It says that he was picked up as part of an undercover operation. His apartment's been raided, his home's been raided. Sources tell ABC News that Epstein was taken into custody Saturday at the New Jersey airport in an undercover operation. A team of law enforcement officers from the FBI and the New York Police Department arrested Epstein, who was returning to the United States from France, according to sources. Authorities also raided Epstein's New York City home Saturday night and into early Sunday today. A spokesman for the U.S. Attorney's Office in Manhattan declined to comment. But at least that smug billionaire face that was above the law during the Obama administration is behind bars now. So I'm super excited to see what will pan out from the raid on his home. Because we know during the Obama administration, Attorney General Loretta Lynch, that there was this big scandal, remember, with her telling the FBI to stand down and not to investigate and all of this stuff, even though there was hard evidence of a secret server, not a secret phone line, not a secret computer, a server. They had their own server to communicate through. And this was while Clinton was Secretary of State. This was treasonous. It was so monumental. But nothing. No investigation at all. So that's what we saw then during that administration. And it's a little exciting, you have to admit, it's a little exciting to think that what if there could be a raid and these bombshells were found. They've been found before, you know, but it's just like dismissed. People allow the corruption, or they're so brainwashed or living in denial that this type of thing is actually going on. I mean, these are DC Comics supervillains. This is real. And a lot of people are just like, oh no, they're my heroes. Honey, they are nobody's heroes. Really makes you wonder. Things are starting to make sense. Everybody wondered, why would Trump have Julian Assange arrested and expedited to the US? And tons of people theorized that it's because they needed him to turn state's evidence. He was the one who broke the emails, the Pizzagate emails about the hot dogs and pizza that Obama paid $65,000 for to have sent to their political parties, and then it named children's names ages 7, 9, and 11 that they would be available in the pool, and just creepy stuff. You guys know what it is. I can't go into it on this channel. I can't risk losing the work the Lord has assigned to me. But the point is, Julian Assange was the one who released those WikiLeaks emails. So it was odd to see that he wouldn't be allied with the United States in bringing down the cabal and the corruption. But it appears that shortly after he was extradited to the United States, which is what everybody was hoping in the Q movement and the Trump supporters, that this was a way to force him to take a plea deal to release his sources so that they could get the evidence they needed to actually prosecute these people. And with him over there hiding out, they couldn't force him to take a plea deal, force him to turn state's evidence. And so it makes you wonder, is that what has happened? Because they've been trying to get Epstein for a long time, and the rest of the cabal sex trafficking ring. And then right after, within what, 60, 90 days, 60 days of extraditing Julian Assange to the United States, they arrest Epstein. They did it. They arrested Epstein on federal charges. The United States did. Not New York, the United States did. And when I talk about what can be revealed if this case is truly prosecuted, I'm not talking about going into the dirty details of what happened to these children and teenagers. I'm talking about stuff that could blow the minds of the mainstream wide open. I'm talking about stuff that the masses would never even believe in a million years could be happening, that we know has been happening. So this is Epstein Island. This is one example of what I'm talking about. You guys know this is Epstein Island. He had a private island that they were conducting this business, if you'd call it that, through. And these are just a couple of the shots that people have been talking about and trying to expose forever. Things like this, that from the air, like on Google Maps, they have stuff masked. This looks like a tennis court, right? But it's not a tennis court. You can see on Apple Maps, you can see the actual pictures of it, and it's some sort of sacrificial, some sort of ritualistic something going on there. We don't know. But the fact that they took the time to put this giant tennis court tarp over it, which is very reminiscent of what they did during World War II with these fake tanks, these inflatable dummy tanks that they would set up on the different ranges so that the enemy, when they flew over, their spy planes and stuff, would see these and think that we had troops in different positions so that we could strategically misguide them. So from the air, these different locations on this island were always broadcast to the masses, like on Google Maps, as things they weren't. Oh, this is just a tennis court. No, it's not a tennis court. And there are tons of things like that. Like here are underground, it looks like buildings that are built going into hills, going into underground. And if you look here, it's the same way. It looks like many of the doorways are painted on. That these are actually more like impenetrable prison type bunker settings, but they have doorways painted on them so that they look like other buildings other than what they actually are. And we don't know what they are, but I'm hoping during this case they will be able to find out what they are. Of course, they burned down Epstein Island. You know, I covered that during the Paradise Lost series when I was covering the California fires and how these fires, whether it's the McMartin preschool that they were arrested for child trafficking and all of that, they always burn it down. So Epstein Island has already had a major fire. But there's no doubt there are plenty of witnesses left, and the remains, I mean, because you can see there was what was on the ground at Epstein Island was nothing compared to whatever they had going on underground at Epstein Island. You can see there's multiple entrances all over the island. And if you don't have the facts and you don't have any idea what we're talking about, go and take a little time, whether you believe in it or not. Take a little time and listen to these citizen journalists. Listen to these people who are broadcasting the research and the facts. You can take it or leave it, but at least listen so that you're making informed decisions, so that you're informed of what both sides are saying. Go over and check out Deplorable McAllister. I got to shout out to her because I owe her one. I love you, sister. Go get 'em, Tiger. Go over to Neon Revolt, neonrevolt.com. Go over to Neon Revolt and look over some of the archives. And of course, Liz Crokin. Hopefully we will see the resurgence of Liz Crokin through this. This is what she's been waiting for. She's not just a citizen journalist. She was a mainstream journalist who had a really nice career, pretty good career. And they blacklisted her. She lost everything. Well, not everything, but she isn't getting any gigs with the mainstream anymore because she started investigating and found out the truth. And when she turned in stories to all of these mainstream outlets she worked for, she found out even more of the truth. And they blacklisted her. And she chose to stick with the truth and keep broadcasting the truth instead of save her career and just become one of their talking heads. So I'd say for sure, keep on the lookout for Liz Crokin through this trial. And I know several of you are waiting for me to finish this series we were right in the middle of, this Huge Secrets in Plain Sight, talking about the interdimensional stuff with stars and programmable matter and clouds and entities breaking the dimensional barriers. I'm on it. I will finish that series and upload those last 2 parts. But this is breaking stuff, this breaking news. I really have to cover because a lot of it even plays into what we've been talking about for the last couple of years even. And it's definitely time sensitive when people's lives could be in danger, when you're talking about what they're going through out on the West Coast and things like that. And furthermore, a lot of this you wouldn't think is related, but it very well could be. So I want to make sure and cover all the different angles on it. For example, with the California earthquakes, most people would just say, oh, natural disaster, and probably is. But we know with the weaponized weather and all of the things that they do, and this earthquake suspiciously happening right in Ridgecrest, California, which is where the China Lake secret weapons testing, they test directed energy weapons, true story, there at that base, at that naval base. And it's huge. They have cordoned off, it's something like 21,000 square miles. It's insanely large. It's like the size of New Jersey. This is no small base, what they have going on out there. And even Dutch Sense noted something about this earthquake, although he wasn't connecting it to the naval base or any sort of weapons testing or anything like that. He did note that these energy releases were following an ancient cavern system that is linked to these ancient volcanoes that aren't active anymore, but he was tracking the aftershock quakes that were coming up in all of these different volcano areas, right at them, hitting right on them. And then the day that he uploads that report, Dutch Sense and his wife get shot at. And I don't really know what is going on with that or what his post meant, that he was swatted or whatever. Apparently he's fine because he's live streaming today, and it seemed like from the post that, you know, he wasn't hurt. He was posting on Facebook. So I guess details forthcoming. But I can just show you his Facebook post saying that there was some sort of threat on his life or something happened that he felt threatened by, and show you the clips that I was talking about from his California earthquake analysis that directly preceded this event that he felt was a threat on his life. I'll show you his Facebook post. I don't know what's going on with that, but if you don't think that's suspicious, that there would be an attack on he and his wife's life immediately after this earthquake when he's covering it.
Here's our 4.0. Coming in next to Edwards Air Force Base. Let's make sure that's not an explosion. Sure isn't, but it's right next to the surface. Now look what we're also next to. Brown Mountain Butte, Soledad Mountain Buttes, Haystack, and Red Buttes. So these are all ancient volcanoes, much older than the ones in question over here to the east-northeast. Okay, so I've explained what's down to the south. Now let's go up and look at these other twos up to the north. We're going to go look up all these around here. If this is happening in a diagonal line at a volcanic field, what are all the other locations? This one, this 4, is right next to a volcano. Same with the 3.5 and 2.9. Right? So here's the 4, 3.5, 2.9. Okay, I mean, there's no debating that. You can go look it up and check for yourself. This Kozo volcanic field and Volcano Peak going right down into China Lake along those lava flows. Up here to the north, let's go prove it to you. We're going to start with the earthquake in the middle, then look over to the east and west. What am I going to prove to you? I'm going to prove to you that each one of these locations is right next to a volcano. It doesn't mean we're looking at an eruption. It just means that the volcanoes are being sought out. This helps reduce our areas to watch, by the way.
So here's the post on his official page. He says, someone just tried to have my wife and I swatted, shot, killed. July 6, 2019, about 10 a.m. Central Time. So there's not any more details than that I can see. So in addition to all of that taking place at this very same time, I had a lot of questions and comments just on the upload about the California earthquake. People saying, could this be related to the tunnel wars? That we know there's an underworld below us, that they have these deep underground military bases. And I have covered in videos past, like this one, the mystery booms and these explosions being heard underground, and covered how we've seen this in other countries, them tunneling under Israel, them in the Middle East, other wars. So it's real, and I cover that in this video here, mystery booms, strange sounds being heard worldwide, answers. That one, that there absolutely is an underground war going on. Now, whether people believe that Trump is clearing the tunnels and the sex trafficking that has been going on through these tunnels, that has been reported, you guys have covered this or have studied this since the 1990s, that there were children, escaped children. You guys know I did the Johnny Gosh series. I've covered all of that. So I've been tracking this for decades. And these escaped children have said, yes, they were trafficked through these tunnels, and they would come out and they escaped in the desert, and military men like SEALs team came in trucks and saved them and loaded them up. But then they had, like Johnny Gosh, then they had to work. They couldn't assimilate back into normal life. They worked then with these agencies who were trying to bust up this crime syndicate. And China Lake just happens to be one of the bases that was proven, people were prosecuted, that was involved with corrupt CIA agents who were trafficking. They were trafficking technology, weapons, they were drug running, corrupt CIA agents out of China Lake back in the 1980s. When I do this video on the China Lake and the earthquake, I will show you guys the news footage and everything. These people were prosecuted and found guilty. But again, like Epstein and Heidi Fleiss and the others, they just prosecuted a few, and they didn't flush out the entire corruption of the cabal that is within the CIA and these intelligence agencies. So it's not all corrupt. It's not every single agent. It's not every single judge. But anyway, my point is about the earthquake, that yeah, China Lake has connections to these corrupt CIA trafficking rings. These were trafficking rings, not just guys. They were trafficking some of the stuff, the drones and stuff that they stole from that base were, and the night vision gear and stuff were found like in crashes off the coast of Colombia. These were massive worldwide trafficking rings connected to China Lake. Plus, I had another guy comment who was there, who lives there in California, and he said this was no joke, this 7.1, that he felt what felt like a pulse of energy after it. Now, of course, that could be completely natural, but we also can't dismiss China Lake being a directed energy weapon testing facility, that there is something else going on. Because if you guys paid attention to the depth on these earthquakes, like right here, China Lake, California, 1 mile deep or 1 kilometer deep. Many of them were, between 1 to 10 miles in depth. These weren't those massive quakes that we've seen in other regions. To have an earthquake of this size and for it to be so shallow, it's worth looking into. It's worth at least considering. And I've had lots of people comment and ask, could this be related to the underground tunnel wars? So I'm going to look into it. I'm not saying it is, but I'm not saying it's not. I'm just going to deliver the facts, and you guys can be the judge. So if you are interested in what's going on out there, please do go down in the comment sections of these videos that I post, because that's where the real knowledge is. It's with all of you guys. So we have like Sabrina's out there. She's keeping us posted on what's going on out there. She lives out there. And so she said, yeah, the military base was evacuated, but just the regular personnel were able to stay. But like she said, her mom was part of the emergency response team and she was evacuated. So they were evacuating the base. And based on, and she talks about how FEMA being sent in and the National Guard being activated and stuff. So anyway, you can go on there and talk to them and ask them questions if you have questions. They are the people on the ground out there, and they would be able to give you more information than I can, but I can gather up the information that I do have from all of these people who are contacting me, and the information that I have from my frame of reference of decades of study, and I can present the facts to you guys, and you can make up your own mind. So anyway, I will be getting back to the clouds, orbs, interdimensional breaking the dimensional barriers video as soon as I can, right away. But right now, I feel compelled to handle this because it's time sensitive. So please be patient. This is every bit as important as anything else we've ever talked about. And Little Petroglyph Canyon is in Ridgecrest, out there on the military base. They actually run tours. They have guided tours that, was it like twice a year or something? They'll open it up and let buses come in so they can show this ancient history. So if you're into archaeology like I am, it's also odd that this is one of the major preserved petroglyph sites from these ancient civilizations, and that's out on the China Lake base as well. So when you're talking about ancient caverns, you guys know, and the serpent races and all this weird stuff that people have recorded out in California over the generations, it's another coincidence that these civilizations and these petroglyphs, the archaeological evidence, is also sealed up out there on China Lake, right there in Ridgecrest, right there where the earthquake has been following these ancient caverns from these inactive volcanoes. I mean, there's just a lot to discuss. Like, remember this map from California that was published by those miners that they found these underground tunnels, and the Native Americans who lived in that area said that the serpent race inhabited these and blah, blah, blah. So this is real archaeology. These are our real records of history left by the people who lived in these lands of California. And then this is really what we are seeing happen in real time right now. So I think it's worth taking a little time and putting some of these puzzle pieces together so we can be at least informed. And that's not to say this isn't just the natural cataclysm that's coming. We know the big earthquake is coming, but it's odd that the path of this quake energy that is being dispersed is what, 90 miles, 93 miles away from the San Andreas fault line, that it's not on the fault line. It's centered in this Ridgecrest area. And it seems to be following an ancient tunnel system instead of the known fault line. I also talked a lot about this underground tunnel system and all of that type of thing in the Paradise Lost series, and discussed the possibility of these ancient underground cities. I connected it all the way through ancient times to modern times, all the way through things like David Paulides' missing 411 phenomena, of people coming up missing in these areas. And they're all plotted on the map, that they're centered around these areas. Look how many are in California, and how even the California wildfires might play into that, what was going on in that town, and were there underground affiliations. Again, I want to be perfectly clear for those people who can't listen and actually understand what I'm saying. I am not saying that these earthquakes aren't natural cataclysms. We absolutely know that's what we're expecting on these fault lines. And we can see that because there are corresponding, across the ocean, there are corresponding quakes. Here's a 7 that just hit over here in Indonesia on the other side of the plate in the West Pacific Ocean. And if you know how these plate movements work, and if you don't, please go over to Dutch Sense and let him explain all of this, because that new motion on the other side of the plate puts California back on watch. So he put up just about 30 minutes ago a new earthquake watch video for California based on that motion. And I take that very seriously personally, Because for those of you who have watched me for years, you know, what was it, about last year, I had a vision of, it was something, a cataclysm coming, and the words that I saw, that the Lord showed me, it was words. And I'm not one of those people who has visions with like written out words, but this one I did, and I saw the US and Japan. Whatever this cataclysm, major cataclysm that God was warning me was on the way, he said the United States and Japan. And if you go back over the last few days, in the West Pacific Ocean, not just the one that the 7 that Dutch Sense is doing the video on right now, but across from Los Angeles or across from Southern California, here is Japan. Right here, you can see the plate movement right here in Japan. This is this week. These are all pretty nice sized earthquakes just this week. But I just wanted to reiterate that I am not saying this isn't a natural event. I am absolutely expecting natural cataclysms. We all know that. But I also want to answer the questions. People have had questions, and there are some odd activities going around the Ridgecrest, China Lake areas. And maybe it's one and the same. I know over the years I've heard Christians post their dreams and visions, and they say they saw certain military groups out burying these small boxes, these small metal boxes along fault lines. And they didn't know what that meant. One in particular even said they were shown that there were Russians that were burying these metallic boxes along fault lines, as if to, just like controlling the weather, they wanted to control the earthquakes for their own personal gain. And you guys know I've done tons of videos on the Tesla technology, that it is documented. I've shown you guys the actual documents and the newspaper clips in previous videos that they had this technology. Tesla was able to induce earthquakes in the late 1800s. And we know that when he passed, the government came in and confiscated all of his research and records. So it could be one and the same thing. What is happening as a natural disaster could also be manipulated or kicked off by some sort of energy device. So I just think it's wise for us to look at everything that's going on and view the situation and the world around us through that lens.